heart attack. Fast, fatal, heart impact. Past painful scars, in fact I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact don't ask. Grab reactions, jacked, attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose. Pick a new silver excuse, I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember you're discreet now, get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty, hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and now, whenever we last left off, we had Izuku Midoriya. He was basically a bit more fed up with everybody than usual. Midoriya, he has been trying to focus on his own training, and really just his own thoughts. He had an outburst at everybody at lunch, who constantly tries to swarm him and talk to him as if he's not there at the UA every single day. After having that outburst, you do have Asui, who did actually learn that Midoriya, on the surface he seems like some crazy psychopath with the ability to not die. Huh. Why is this ringing a bell for some reason? Anyways, but he's actually somewhat of a sweetheart in his own right. He not only basically helped Momo Yaoyorozu train a little bit for UA and improve upon herself, apparently he's also the reason why she trains, and has taken some firearms classes. And then there's Jiro, who explained that he saved her from being hit by a car, or a semi-truck, if I believe I was correct. If I believe I was right. Then there's Ochako with him basically cutting her a break, something that, well, anyone else in his position would not have done, and so on and so forth. Along with Toru, who Midoriya quite literally once invited out to go train, since she once said that she was going to go to UA. Then there is Toga. She didn't really have a very good reason. That did not sound weird. She's been around a lot more people, and she knows that talking about blood the way she does, usually, is kind of creepy. So she has at least tried to suppress that little bit of instinct. But it is still constantly on her mind. Now, we will cut to this morning for UA. Everybody is getting ready and getting dressed, as they all do hop on the bus and go to the USJ. Meanwhile, while everyone is doing that, we'll cut back roughly a few days with the Demon Clan, as Fraudrin kills another human. Their soul is harvested, and he takes it to the seal. As soon as he does what he needs to, he takes a knee and explains to Sir Meliodas, or the Ten Commandments leader, that it is done. That this power, it should be sufficient enough. And that if they are to trade places, then he will. As soon as that sentence was completed, you do have Meliodas, who basically burst out from the seal, and does actually at least begin stretching, and actually at least looking around. The area is unfamiliar, and it's strange. How odd. So this is the world that we left. I expected the battlefield to still be here. Sir Meliodas. I mean, leader of the Ten Commandments, Meliodas, sir. How were you? Ah, Frodron. Meliodas walking up to him, swiftly saying that he has done enough, and that he has done well, and for his reward. Meliodas swiftly smashing his hand upwards with as much force as he can, in his suppressed state, swiftly ending Frodron's life. Going on a state, your reward is death. You have been given a mission. The seal has weakened. Hell, I was able to come through, but I had to force my way through. However, I am aware that means that the goddess clan might still be alive. If they've gained enough power, or at least a significant enough standing in this world, that means that they might have people around. And they probably felt that. Oh well, no bother. What is this? Meliodas bending down and picking up a phone, unaware of what it is. Looking at it and beginning to mess with it. Now, he does that for roughly 2 days, sitting in a cave. And eventually does figure out what he needs to do. Where the immortal is and who his name is. Izuku Midoriya, age 15. Currently going to UA High School. Now, with that being said, Meliodas immediately takes flight. Meanwhile, back in the current time, on the bus, Midoriya is sitting on the bus. And you do actually have Kendo on his right and Ochako on his left. Then you do have Toga sitting in front of him in his right, and Jiro sitting next to somebody in front of Midoriya. And you have Kendo who is actually talking to Midoriya about different forms of combat and martial arts. And you do have Ochako who is trying to bring up that they should be training after school. Okay. Yeah, sure. If I'm not busy, then we might be able to train. Oh, come on, Izuku. You've been getting busy so much more lately. What's happened? Well, it's kind of personal reasons. Dian going on a state that he actually does have his own reasons. In fact, he is actually late to getting home. That being where Mineta does actually speak up. Wait, get home? So you live with this blonde goddess? Actually, kind of. Me and her met last year. Last year? Yep. We actually did run into each other again. It was kind of weird. You see, whenever we were younger, we used to be friends. And I'm not too sure what happened to her parents. Really? Yeah, Mineta. Why? What do you think I meant by we live together? Besides, she is not my girlfriend. Wait, so you mean I have a chance? Before Deanne swiftly looks at Mineta before shaking her head saying no. And then you do have Froppy, who brings up a question to Midoriya. That makes that confident smile on his face somewhat at least stop. Hey Midoriya. Yeah? What is it? Asui? Well, I did have a question about your quirk. Or quirks. Do you mind if I ask them? Sure. Well, your quirks are odd. At least the weirdest combination I've ever seen. I mean, Todoroki's quirk is an elemental type, but even then, it kinda makes sense. What were your mother's and your father's quirk? As soon as she says those words, it kinda does register in Midoriya's head. His mom and his dad. And then that look on his face somewhat turns to a bit of envy. where he looks at least angry, but also at least remorseful. And she does actually catch herself with what she just said. Going to bring her hands up to apologize. No, Asui. It's cool. To be honest, I don't know how I got my quirk. It's, new though. Whenever I first discovered it, a kid lit me on fire. Really? That's terrible, Midoriya. Actually, not really. In fact, he could have killed me. It was strange. Ibarra going to ask Midoriya if he saw a light on the other side. Hmm? I don't think so. It was all kind of just dark. I mean, I heard voices, but I think it was just everyone else around me. Then again, I did go blind. Wow. Yeah, it was just nothing. Quiet. Then I came back. I died and returned. I don't know how my quirk works. And at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. Really? Why? Well, as far as I know, it's basically just a mutation. So that's all I need to know. My other quirk is self-explanatory. Now, they all do arrive and get off of the bus. As they all do walk in. Ibarra actually talking with Midoriya about his quirk a little bit more. And then there is everyone else. They all do go inside the USJ to meet the Space Hero 13. Midoriya not really fanboying, but 13 at least noticing the boy, pointing out that, hey, he's pretty sure he's seen him somewhere before. Hmm? Oh, probably. Wouldn't doubt it. Alrighty then. Well, anyways, this is the USJ, the Unforeseen Circumstance Joint. Now, with that being said, eventually, after 13's talking, the villains do arrive. And you have Shigaraki, who has the Nomu immediately, keeping it on standby. For some reason, All For One was less reluctant to leave the Nomu behind, especially if they're making a surprise attack. So he's expecting All Might to be there, isn't he? This is weird. Why wouldn't he let me know about his plan? Plus this Nomu. It's not a high end, is it? Or so I've heard. It's lower than that, isn't it? It's mid-range, probably. Or is it a low end? No, the low ends aren't as strong, especially with the quirks we've given this one. Now, with that, Shigaraki introduces the League of Villains to the USJ, saying that they're all here to kill All Might. Now, with that being said, everyone does actually take positions, all trying to go on the defensive, while Aizawa does inform all of them to simply stay together, do not get separated, as he just goes running down the stairs, and the portal villain teleports everyone away. Now, as soon as that does happen, random portals are opened up, and everyone is thrown through all of them. Midoriya actually beginning to fall out of the air, as he does actually feel something holding onto his arm. Turning and going to look. Okay, that's Ibarra. She wrapped the vine around his arm. So it seems like she's at least trying to make sure some of us stay together. Now, as that is happening, Midoriya actually does look behind him, before swinging the vine out in front of him. That way Ibarra isn't laying flat upon entering the water, since you might as well be running into a brick wall at 30 miles an hour. As soon as that does happen, Midoriya smashes into the water, and Ibarra immediately smashes her body into his. The force does hurt Midoriya and knock the wind out of him, as he actually does surface and try and take a breath of fresh air. As soon as that does happen, Midoriya immediately looks around. And surprise, surprise, immediately he can tell that they're surrounded by villains. Midoriya ducking down into the water and looking around. A shark villain coming directly at them. As soon as Midoriya does see it, he cocks back his arm and does go throw it out for a punch. The villain immediately being hit in the side, as Midoriya strikes it across the face and breaks their jaw. As Asui immediately wraps her tongue around Midoriya's body, and is able to throw him on board the boat, along with actually helping Ibarra climb aboard. Now, with that being said, this is quite surprising. Mineta freaking out that this is all happening. This is crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy. Oh, will you shut up? Hey, the reason why you're so calm is you can't die. Well, kind of. Kind of? What do you mean by that? Well, I'll explain later. Anyways, so, does anyone have a phone? I think mine might be damaged. Hang on. Midoriya looking into his pocket, and sure enough, his phone doesn't work. Now, Ibarra and everyone else is currently all trying their phones, finding that there's something going on. Ibarra actually looking up and pointing out that it seems like there might be a villain here that can disrupt electricity. I mean, just look. The lights that look like they're supposed to be on, they seem like they're just somewhat flickering. Or you can at least hear a static sound coming from them. Along with that, there's the boat. Whenever Midoriya does try and turn the key and see if it would turn on, nothing happens. Either the battery's dead, or Ibarra is actually right. So, as Midoriya actually does look overboard, thinking that he might be able to swim his way out of this. Nope. Ah, shit. Okay, we're surrounded. You don't say. Mineta goes on stating, possibly asking Midoriya if he has a plan. Somewhat. Then again, it's kind of risky. Well, Midoriya, if we can execute it properly, I think it might work. Well, most likely, yeah. But you guys probably aren't gonna like it. Mineta, are you talking to me? Do you need my help? I'm not helping you. Huh, that's a shame. And here I thought that a guy from Class 1A could be really helpful during a villain attack. Maybe even get a few fangirls after all this is over. Really? You think so? Oh, most definitely, Mineta. Okay, what do I have to do? Well, from what I know about your quirk, if I'm correct, back during the matches, you sort of threw one of those things in your head at somebody? Yeah. The balls on my head can stick to anything. Except me if I want them to. Oh. Okay, that's actually kind of perfect. Listen. Ibarra, she's gonna wrap her vines around my arm. And what she's going to do is give me some length. After she does that, Asui is going to throw me. I'm gonna try and take a running start and jump with her launch. If she can launch me far enough and hard enough, I should be able to smash into the shoreline. After that does happen, I can try pulling in the yacht. If we can get those villains away from the water element, then they're basically just regular people on land. At least I think some of them. Anyways, are you guys ready? Sure. Now, after the plan is executed, Ibarra does actually have to rip her hair off of, well, the rest of her hair. That way the length does at least go back to being normal. And Mineta uses his sticky balls to put the rope in place. Midoriya gets launched, significantly bruising, and at least breaking a few of his ribs, before smashing into the shore, and proceeding to begin to pull the yacht in. Now, this actually does work, and Midoriya begins to actually pull it in. However, as soon as he does actually get them onto shore, this is whenever Shigaraki walks directly up behind Midoriya, and puts a hand on his shoulder. "Hi there, young man." Midoriya immediately having his right arm begin to decay, and Midoriya does actually feel a lot of pain as he begins to grit his teeth, and at least lean forwards. Interesting. Shigaraki not letting up. The skin on Midoriya's arm, heading downwards to the lower part of his forearm by his elbow, has already completely decayed, and is beginning to affect the muscle area around it. Midoriya is still not giving in intense pain. It appears that you're strong. But anyways, turn around, kid. Him then doing so. Izuku Midoriya. I love your movies. Shame that you're gonna have to die, though. You see, my mentor. All for one. It's quite surprising you know who he is. Midoriya going on the defensive, cocking back his right arm, and throwing a punch outwards. As soon as Midoriya does that, Shigaraki immediately just dodges the weak blow. And Midoriya, he has his arm just begin to at least try going limp. Shigaraki immediately grabbing his arm with both hands, as it completely begins to decay. Froppy and Ibarra and Mineta all watching on. Froppy screaming for Midoriya that he needs to move and get away from that guy. And, well, you also do have Aizawa, who looks up and tries to cancel his quirk. Now, knowing that this will not affect Midoriya, Shigaraki's quirk stops working. Before Midoriya, he just throws a punch with all he's got directly into Shigaraki's face, breaking his nose, causing Shigaraki to let go of his arm and back away. As soon as he looks back up, Midoriya's arm is immediately healed, and he's already rushing towards him. Before going to pick Shigaraki up, Shigaraki screams for the Nomu to kill this kid. Now, as soon as that does happen, Midoriya immediately just socks him across the face, before the Nomu comes in and immediately just smashes into Midoriya, sending Midoriya flying away. Before using his quirk, he throws his arms out in front of him and is able to grab the ground, immediately pulling at it with his arms and flinging himself back forwards. As soon as he does that, he actually does run into the Nomu, smashing it and trying to throw a punch outwards with all his strength. As soon as he does that, the Nomu doesn't even flinch, shocking Midoriya. "You idiot! It has shock absorption. No matter what you throw at it, it will just absorb it and send it right back to you." The Nomu cocking back his arms before smashing Midoriya down, smashing him down over and over and over again. Midoriya smashed into a red paste, before the Nomu does at least turn around. And Shigaraki does actually think that the job is done. Midoriya immediately regenerating and getting back up, putting the Nomu into a chokehold. Surprising Shigaraki. How durable is this kid? You bastards. You're not getting away with... Midoriya immediately being stabbed through his body, as spikes protrude out of the Nomu. The spikes setting Midoriya 5 feet away from the Nomu, as more begin to protrude into his body. Some piercing through his eyes, skull, throat, and major arteries, along with just covering him as if he were a human pincushion. Now, Midoriya is thought to be dead this time. However, then his hands begin to move, and begin to actually grab away at and pick up the spikes, trying to snap them off. Before, Midoriya is able to actually just basically impale all of his hands and push off of the Nomu, finally at least getting a breath. His lungs currently trying to burn the blood out of them. And Midoriya begins to hawk up quite a bit. Now, the Nomu then turns around and immediately just begins by spewing magma onto Midoriya, actually causing him to scream out in pain. Now, Midoriya screams very loudly, and everyone does actually hear that. And it shocks Shibara and Mineta, along with Asui. Now, everyone is confused by that scream, before realizing who exactly it was. Now, as for Midoriya, he tries to get back onto his feet, burning away the flesh at his arms and the skin on his hands, as he tries to stand back up. As soon as he's able to actually get up, he just begins by grabbing away at the magma on his arms and just trying to tear it away, burning away at his fingers and basically reducing his hands to little more than skin and bone, or roughly just bone and pieces of charred meat. Now, as Midoriya begins to regenerate, the Nomu rushes forwards and actually does smash upwards into Midoriya's guts, before Midoriya does actually try and grab away at its arm. And as soon as he does that, he actually does throw his legs upwards and wrap his body around the Nomu's arm. Shigaraki just laughing. The Nomu has a super strength quirk, idiots! Damn it. 3 quirks? 4? How many does this thing have? Now, Midoriya tries to just do one thing. Hunter's Fest! As Midoriya begins to grow in size. Shigaraki and some of the other villains who gather around to watch, feeling their strength, immediately begin to leave them, along with the Nomu. Midoriya absorbing 25% of the strength of everyone around him. Before, he actually does begin to move the Nomu's arm backwards, and register it into an actual hold. Shigaraki instructed the Nomu to kill that kid at any cost, as the Nomu just completely goes berserk and crazy, needles protruding out of his arms, and trying to impale Midoriya, spewing magma onto his arm along with just smashing it into the ground over and over and over again. Now, Midoriya takes this up to 35%, then 50%. As soon as he does that, he's actually able to pull back the Nomu's arm, and, using his legs, he's able to snap the arm at the joint, before simply doing one thing. Pulling with all of his own might, and ripping the Nomu's arm clean off, before getting back onto his feet, and rushing the Nomu, punching away at it with its shock absorption. The Nomu absorbing the blows, but air around it begins to recoil, and try to actually attack. The Nomu trying to swing away with one arm as it begins to regenerate. And Midoriya can see exactly the type of power this thing holds. Shit. Okay. This isn't good. Fuck. Alright. Well. Midoriya just bringing his hands up into a defensive stance, saying, I guess I'm gonna have to get serious for this. Wait, What is he doing? That looks like... That's weird. I thought Midoriya couldn't feel pain. Think about it. That scream from earlier. Midoriya screamed because he felt pain. He's still human, right? Some part of him still is. Think about it. Then there's him right now. He's getting defensive. That's a fighting stance if she's correct, along with that move he did earlier. He's trying to get serious and defend them against that thing. You're right, but even then. What about that guy? I don't know. Whatever his quirk is, it's dangerous. As soon as he touched Midoriya, his arms begin to decay. Plus, think about it. If Midoriya is trying to be cautious now, that means it is actually dangerous. Now, meanwhile, you do have Midoriya, who is throwing haymaker after haymaker into the Nomu's attacks. Now, Midoriya actually does try and tap into this magical power too. As soon as he does, Midoriya, he begins to bulk up more, as he actually has to rip off the shirt of his hero outfit because it was about to basically just burst at the seams. Now, he then at least begins to rush towards the Nomu. Using this new magical power, he's absorbed 70% of its own, strength, perception, and speed, being able to smash away at it over and over and over again. And as soon as Midoriya and the Nomu do actually get into a handlock, you can clearly see the difference in strength. The hell? This kid, what is he doing? How is he outclassing the Nomu? Now, as soon as that does actually happen, you do have Asui, who hops off the boat and tries to attack at this guy. Now, Froppy, she immediately is able to try and smash into Shigaraki's back. As soon as she does, he goes flying forwards onto his knees. And multiple villains begin to try and rush at her, along with Shigaraki himself, who's screaming with his hand outwards that everyone to get the hell out of his way. Now, Midoriya immediately hears that go on, and watches as Yubara's vines try and fling into the crowd of villains. Midoriya immediately just snapping the Nomu's arms forwards before rushing that way, being able to blitz through speed and smash away quite a lot of the villains. As there is Midoriya, who is above Asui. Then there's a wall of thorns stabbing into Midoriya's back as they begin to decay. And Shigaraki, he uses both of his hands and places them onto Midoriya's back, before instructing the boy that was quite simple. So, you thought that breaking the Nomu's arms would be enough? That's just it, boy, it's not. He doesn't know exactly how he's still alive, but he'll find it. In fact, he's gonna decay him into dust. Let's see him come back from that. Now, Midoriya begins to scream out in pain. And Asui does actually tell Midoriya to move, run, or simply just attack him. I can't. Why? If I move, that leaves you wide open. Damn it. Midoriya looking up and saying for Ibarra to go get reinforcements, go get help. He can regenerate and keep this up, but he doesn't know for how, as Shigaraki grabs hold of Midoriya's spine and simply just rips it out of his body. That being where Midoriya actually does at least have a blank stare for a second, as his body falls limp onto Asui. And she's freaking out, trying to get Midoriya conscious and see if he's actually awake. Midoriya's eyes at least opening as he begins to start breathing again. Is it over? Midoriya, you need to get up. Are you alright? Fine. Is he still here? Yes, but he's just trying to kill you. Then he'll kill me. Figures. Alright, let's try this again. I've always wondered what happens if I do this. Midoriya simply bringing both of his hands together underneath him and instructing Asui that he's going to be really sorry about this. As he throws his body forwards and instructs her to push him. Her immediately bring her hands up and doing just that. Bring her legs up and kicking off Midoriya's chest. As Midoriya flies backwards and Shigaraki flies onto the ground. The Nomu immediately coming at Midoriya as he's able to bring his leg outwards and smash directly up into its neck. Before, he's able to launch his body forwards like an acrobat and immediately grab onto the Nomu's beak. And begin by tearing it upwards. As he simply just shouts, "Hunter's faced!" Now, with that, Midoriya tries to drain the Nomu and take on its power. The Nomu, it simply just begins by dropping down onto its knees and being completely stunned. Midoriya getting back up as his spine is still regenerating, and he looks like a hulking behemoth. And he just starts looking towards the way of the villains. And he brings his hands up, clapping them outwards. The large sonic force immediately not only shattering Midoriya's hands, but also sending the villains flying away. Now, Midoriya then immediately turns, and you do have Shigaraki, who is currently retreating. And you do have Midoriya, who looks at Asui, immediately using his speed and blitzing over, grabbing Asui before moving up towards the boat, at unknown speeds. Asui being set down as Midoriya simply just states that he has to go find everyone else, before disappearing. Midoriya running around the USJ at high speeds, beginning by just simply smashing down any villain he can, and trying to find UA students. Okay, 30 seconds. At least that's how long I think this can last. Or, hang on, I'm already at 27, 28, 29. That being when Midoriya's right arm immediately explodes and gets sent flying, as he smashes directly into another villain. Now, as soon as he says that, he actually does appear on Toga, who is currently being overpowered by a few people, along with, let's say, Ochako, and, well, let's see. I would say Kaminari. Or not Kaminari. Let's see. Ojiro. That's better. Now, as soon as Midoriya actually does appear, he immediately is able to swat away the villains as his left arm immediately explodes off of his body. And it begins to try and regenerate immediately. That being when Midoriya immediately falls onto his knees, and Toga comes running over. "Izuku, are you okay?" "I'll be fine. Don't know how long my body can hold out. It's like you tied a weight to every single muscle fiber, and then put 1,000 pounds on them. Listen, most people safe. Toga, take my blood. Mimic me. Make the villains think I'm still around. I'm about to..." That being where Midoriya quite literally explodes. All of his muscle fibers blowing out to the same point. And Toga is not only covered in blood, but she's basically surrounded by it. Immediately surprised. Now, with that, there is one aspect that actually did come about on the scenario. Toga's wounds were healed, and she turned into Midoriya. Now, as everyone is looking around, you do have Midoriya who actually does at least sit up. Ugh, what the hell happened? Oh. Oh shit! Midoriya immediately covering himself with his hands. Uh, dude, are you alright? Ojiro says, looking away, along with the Choco and Mina. Uh, did I explode again? Again? How often does that happen to you? Well, a full body explosion is the first. Other than that, I don't think ever. Now, with that being said, you also do have All Might who comes in. And him along with a lot of the pro heroes due to the current situation. A lot of the areas do have villains running around. However, it seems like they're all on the run. Some of them are taken down and beaten, along with what seems to be this strange creature. It's immediately being ordered to take down and kill All Might, as it begins to try and stand up before having its full strength return to its body. And it immediately begins to start running and trying to blitz All Might. All Might currently at least trying to come in at it. Now, with that, Midoriya, after getting the top part of Ojiro's gi, he actually does try and run out, and back into the battle. As soon as he does actually run close enough, he yells to All Might to stay away from its body. It can cover itself in spikes. As soon as Midoriya said that, All Might actually did already throw out his arm, before trying to pull it back outwards. As soon as that did happen, a spike was able to actually graze one of All Might's knuckles. And immediately, All Might had to go on the defensive, trying to avoid the Nomu, who is blasting not only hot lava at him, but who is currently trying to get close enough to impale his body with spikes. Now, Midoriya, he is currently trying to do one thing. He's trying to think about this. Okay, this thing. Shit. I don't think I can reach him this far. I have to get in close. If then I can do that, I can try and use Snatch. Wait a minute. This thing isn't immortal. Not like me. So all I have to do is... Midoriya immediately running in. And rushing forwards. Trying to use his ability. Being able to immediately have a beam fly out and stab into the Nomu's brainstem. Before, he immediately just rips it out. As soon as he does pull his hand backwards, he is able to actually catch not only the spine of the Nomu, but also the brain, before just simply dropping it. And the Nomu, his body, immediately falls forwards as it loses all bodily control, and begins to spew magma at the ground, along with the spikes not only beginning to retract and deploy, but doing that over and over and over again. Now, with that being said, Midoriya, he and everyone else do get debriefed on what happened. Midoriya giving a statement, along with actually learning from Toga about what happened with his blood. Now, Midoriya doesn't really believe it, and they do at least try and administer a test. Toga uses her support item to collect blood from Midoriya, and she does actually take a small vial of it and give it over to the UA students, who do at least have some injuries to their body. Now, Kirishima was able to actually try and fight off against the portal villain, and he actually had a few close calls with almost having his arms severed from his body. But he was at least able to hold out. He was trying to help everyone he could, but he basically had to defend himself against some actual very strong villains over in his area. And then there was the whole hostage situation with the dumb Kaminari. He had to try and deal with that. Now, luckily the pro heroes showed up when they did, since Kaminari would have probably died if he tried to blitz the villain. Now, Kaminari was able to cure his dumbness with Midoriya's blood, and that actually did surprise Midoriya. Along with that, you also do have, well, Midoriya himself. As soon as the situation was all over, he was actually not even really fit to head home. He was still wobbling and barely even moving straight. So he was actually instructed to stay after school until he recovered enough energy to walk home. Now, with that being said, you also do have all the girls of Class 1A. A lot of them are very appreciative that Midoriya was able to help them. And there is at least a bit of a conversation going on. Asui was very thankful and actually does respect Midoriya. With what happened the other day and what happened now, it showed Midoriya's true colors. Yes, he will pretend that he doesn't feel pain, just because he doesn't want people to be afraid to hurt him in a real fight or even training. Then there is currently what happened. He wasn't afraid of even the thought of being killed. She doesn't know the extent of his quirk, and neither does he. But he didn't even care about what happened to him. Even if it killed him, he would not let her get hurt or even put in danger. And it was actually quite, well, surprising. She herself kind of falling for Midoriya, along with Ibarra. Ibarra was actually sort of impressed. She already did know that Midoriya was a well-respectable guy, but he went above and beyond to try and make sure everyone was safe. Along with that, even whenever he could barely move and function properly, he was still fighting. Fighting for the safety of everyone here. Whenever he knew that they were safe here to handle the situation, he immediately rushed off to try and get everyone else. His body giving way to wear and tear in the process. Truly, that man is blessed by something. But you also do have Meliodas. Impressive. So, that just proves it. No human could have survived any of that and continued moving, let alone living. So, this guy, what does he do? Then again, the whole blowout thing. Like an explosive. Interesting. Now, a lot of the girls do actually stay after school and talk with Midoriya. Now, you also do have Invisible Girl, who kind of spills a little bit of the beans. She did state that exactly what happens in our competition now, which confused Midoriya. Competition? What competition? Nothing. Okay, that's sort of weird. Now, with that being said, I do believe that this is a good point to leave this part off of. And I do hope you guys enjoyed. And have an amazing night. Catch you guys in the next part.